The Football Postcast in association with Paddy Power. Their new iPhone app is simpler than a Tim Sherwood Team Talk, so download it now.
Fear not, the dull, boring snorefest that is the international football break is over. The Premier League is back. I'm Dave Clark. This is the Racing Post Weekend Football Postcast. You're very much welcome along. With me in the studio, I've got Mark Langdon of the Racing Post, James Milton of the Racing Post, and on the line, we've got Ed Quigley from Paddy Power. Ed, how are you? How's business?
Good. I'm good, Dave. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. What do we make of England?
I think England are quite poor myself. I mean, I think they scraped a draw against Slovenia there the other night, and even the performance against Malta I wasn't too enamoured with. I personally wouldn't be appointing Southgate myself. We saw a bit of a gamble there yesterday on Mancini, but the money's coming for Southgate again, which I'm kind of surprised about. But yeah, I mean, they're still going to qualify no matter who they have in charge. But yeah, I wouldn't be impressed by those performances at all.
Mark, I don't want to spend too long on England, but it didn't look great, did it?
Well, no, it wasn't great. I mean, the papers today are full of the FA being pleased with what Southgate's done so far, which is a concern and maybe shows how low expectations are. But I mean, I don't see why anybody's surprised. Southgate's had 2 jobs, failed in both of them, so I don't see why anybody thinks it's going to, be third time lucky. He took Middlesbrough down with the under-21s in the European Championship. Yes, he qualified, but once they were there, I mean, he took a very talented squad to that finals, and they didn't do anything. In terms of the team selection the other night against Slovenia, I mean, you don't need Henderson and Dyer, 2 of those players playing in front of the back 4. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, when Dyer plays for Tottenham, he can play that holding role on his own. Henderson plays the holding role on his own for Liverpool with Lallana and Wijnaldum getting forward. So, I mean, when people say that there wasn't much sort of quality coming through midfield, there's not going to be with 2, players like that. You only need one of those. I think Theo Walcott, blocks Kyle Walker's runs down the right-hand side because, they occupy each other's space.
Yeah.
Daniel Sturridge, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Sturridge, but, I mean, he was so greedy the other night. It was incredible, really, and I'm amazed he got as long as he did. I think probably the only selection that worked for Southgate was Lingard. I thought he did okay.
It was an interesting one.
On the left-hand side, but... Yeah, I mean, as Ed has already said, I think England, won't have to do anything to qualify. But I mean, I think they should be looking for
best
somebody.
of a poor bunch, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, you need to be looking for a new manager. I mean, you can't just accept that Southgate is as good as you can get, even if it takes a while to find a replacement. So, I mean, I'd be eagerly searching out for a new boss myself.
Milts, just give me one positive from England.
Like Ed says, they will qualify anyway. So
there aren't any. That's fine.
Joe
he played well.
Yeah. More English players should go and play abroad, probably.
Interesting one. Right, let's get stuck into the Premier League action. Last 2 Premier League champions on Saturday. Chelsea hosting Leicester City. Ed, you got any prices for us there?
Yeah, and match betting there. Chelsea are 8-13. The draw is 3-1, and Leicester 9-2. Yeah, so in this game, John Terry looks set to return. They won their first 3 games at the start of the season with him in the team, and they albeit they were against West Ham, Watford and Burnley, and they drew the game against Swansea where he was obviously injured. He left the Liberty on crutches that day. They've had 2 defeats since then without him in the team, that being Liverpool and Arsenal, obviously tough fixtures, and they returned 2 weeks ago to winning ways against Hull. I think Chelsea will deal with the kind of the mid-tier to lower-tier teams. They'll deal with them pretty efficiently, and it's just where you rate Leicester. I think Leicester are a kind of mid to lower-tier team, despite last season. They have a really poor away record so far this season as well. It's actually the worst in the league. They've played 3, lost 3, those being against Hull, Liverpool and United, and they've conceded 10 too. So, and finally, 5 out of 7 of their Leicester games have gone over 2.5 goals, and similarly, 6 out of 7 of Chelsea's have gone over 2.5. I think Chelsea will win, but instead of backing the 8-13, I'll be backing Chelsea and over 2.5 at 13-10.
Interesting, Mark. Leicester aside that you've been sort of struggling to pigeonhole. Are we anywhere near that?
Yeah, I mean, I would. I think they may fall short of top 10. Maybe somewhere between, say, 10th and 12th come the end of the season. I think it was interesting that before the international break, I mean, I was on Southampton. I mean, basically the prices are saying that Southampton are a better team than Leicester. I think that I think that's a fair assessment. So I was looking at Diego Costa, first scorer here. I'm going to go down the favourite backers route, but I mean he's got 9 in 11 for club and country. Paddy Power, of course, you can bet each way, and as Ed suggested there could be a lot of goals. I think that does bring the each way aspect of this one into play. I mean, Costa is finishing off all of the good work really that Chelsea are doing with Willian and Hazard on the wings, and I mean Leicester are just pretty average defensively, despite what happened last season.
Not to keep banging on about it, but do you think they're missing Kante massively?
They are.
Protection?
I mean, they are missing Kante. In obviously be playing for the opposition on Saturday. I think there's another issue though, in that Morgan and Hoof were never that good. I mean, if you think back to this time last year, nobody would have suggested that they could go and win a league with those two at centre half. I mean, they've been knocking around English football for a while now without ever suggesting that last season was anything other than a fluke, a glorious fluke. But Leicester fans get angry when people say about the luck there. But I mean, there was a certain amount of luck involved. I think they should just enjoy the fact that they've had this once in a lifetime achievement. But they're not that good defensively, and I think Costa will take advantage.
Goal fest for you, Milts?
Yeah, I think both teams to score's the way to go here. I think we've mentioned the issues in both defences. Chelsea, I think, have kept 2 clean sheets in 9 games this season, and those were against Burnley and Hull. And Leicester, for all their kind of slowish start, they've scored goals in all their away defeats. Obviously, got hammered at Man United and Liverpool, but still managed to score. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. You just look at the prices, and Chelsea kind of 8 to 13. I'm not quite sure I trust them just yet. They've been wobbling as well. Had that 3-0 defeat at Arsenal, of course. So I think there will be goals at both ends. Both teams scored in both of their league meetings last season, and obviously they had an exciting League Cup clash earlier this season. So that's the bet for me.
Okay, fair enough. Just quickly, Ed, price for Costa, first goal scorer. What are your each way terms in that market?
So Diego Costa is 16 to 5, and it's 30 odds each way, and it's the first 5 goal scorers, and both teams to score is 4 to 6 there for James as well.
Okay, nice one. I'll move on to Saturday's other game, London Derby. Palace hosting the mighty West Ham United. Got some prices there for us, Ed?
Yeah, Crystal Palace are 23 to 20. The draw is 23 to 10, and West Ham are 5 to 2. Yeah, I was just looking at Dave. You probably know more about this than me as well, but West Ham's injury list is astonishing for this time of year. I mean,
and still growing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, Cresswell, Nordvik, Kaleri, Mazuaka, Ayew, Carroll, Sacco, and now Byron and Torre as well. Though I hear Torre being injured is a good thing.
Well, yeah, but, you said that, not me. Yeah.
Yeah, Crystal Palace obviously been in good form since the window closed when Pardew brought in the likes of Benteke and Townsend. Scott Dan is also back as well. I'm reading for the weekend. He's back in training anyway. And Benteke is obviously, he's finding his feet now to the team actually that plays football to his talents. And I think Palace are a cracking bet here, 23 to 20 straight up. And if this is a hot shot jackpot game as well, by the way, so Benteke is obviously a contender. But for those who are looking elsewhere, I think Scott Dan could be one as well. He's 16 to 1 first, 11 to 2 anytime, and he averages a goal every 8.8 games for Palace.
Interesting, Mark. I saw an interesting stat. Bizarre Trevor Sinclair rant towards Slaven Bilic this morning. In that last season West Ham were 5th in distance covered. This year they're down to 13th. Do you think that's had any kind of effect on their performances this year?
I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, I think the problems are the injuries and the fact that the likes of Payet he came back late from the Euros, so you've had to integrate him into the team. And then you've also got the new stadium. So I think they're getting knocked out of the Europa League, I think, was probably a bigger blow because that was a competition that Bilic had targeted doing quite well in this season. I think that was a major setback for everybody really involved with West Ham. I'm not as negative about them in this game, though. I think at the moment playing away could be, if not an advantage, but I don't think it's as much of a disadvantage to them as maybe the pressure they've got on them at home. I mean, they have struggled away so far, and that they were shocking at West Brom in the fact that they conceded the 4 goals. But actually, I think West Brom scored with all their shots on target, or maybe they had one towards the end as well. But the other 2 defeats were at Man City and Chelsea, and I think that they would happen anyway, most seasons. So I was looking at the draw in this game. outside of Benteke, I still wonder where Palace's goals will come from, and it always makes me nervous backing them in their home games. I almost like them as an away team more than I do a home side. I mean, they thrashed Stoke, but Shay Given had a bit of a nightmare and since been dropped there. So, I mean, I think if if West Ham can just stop Benteke, that's a long way to at least getting a point out of the game. Payet, is now back to full fitness and form. So I think that West Ham carry a bigger goal threat than maybe they did earlier on in the campaign. I don't see that much between the two teams over the course of the season.
Aubameyang's massive. I'll be looking out for the team sheet. If he starts, then a lot more solid in midfield.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised that he's not played that much since he arrived at the club.
Yeah, you're not the only one, yeah.
He did all right in Italy, but I'm nervous about backing Palace at these prices, I have to say.
Milts?
Yeah, I'm along similar lines as Mark, actually. I think, you look at the match prices and maybe you've still got the kind of hangover from last season. Obviously, West Ham were great. Palace finished very, very poorly. And Palace do look a shade too short, despite, as Ed mentioned, all the West Ham injuries. I mean, obviously, West Ham's record, I think they've won one of their last 7, and that was a comprehensive 96th minute winner against Accrington, was it,
yeah.
in the League Cup? So, you're kind of looking at that and thinking, are they going to be able to pick themselves up? I'd just go for Payet anytime goal scorer, I think. Scored at home and away against Palace last season. He's obviously been in good goal scoring form recently. Palace committed the most fouls of any team last season. I think they're probably up there in that ranking again.
Yeah, free kick on the edge of the box, be lovely.
Absolutely. So
unbiased view, yeah.
He's obviously the class act on show, and yeah, I am still a bit tentative about Palace. I'm not sure they've beaten anyone particularly impressively. So I'm happy to swerve them at kind of 23-20 or whatever they are this weekend.
Okay, what price is Payet to open the scoring and any time?
Payet first is 7-1, and Payet any time is 11-5, and just the draw there as well as 23-10.
Okay, interesting. Right, we'll get a nice juicy treble from the lads. First, we'll hear from colleague Steve Palmer.
This will not be beaten.
Start with you, Mark. Best bit of the weekend.
I'm going to go to League 2, draw no bet. Luton at Leighton Orient. Leighton Orient, no win in 7, 1 goal in 6. I mean, they've just appointed an Italian manager who was last seen taking Sampdoria down 5 years ago. I've no idea what's going on at Orient, but it's not looking good. Luton have slipped slightly, but they're 5th in League 2. And I think that it's probably only Orient's reputation as being sort of among the big spenders in the division that's sort of keeping the Luton draw no bet price attractive enough for me that I think Luton should be shorter.
Milts for you?
I'm going in the Championship with Reading to win at QPR. Jaap Stam versus Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank in the all-Dutch clash. And Stam's made a really decent start at Reading. They've lost 1 of their last 10 games in all competitions. And QPR are just kind of doing what QPR do, aren't they? Just kind of bumbling along in mid-table. And I'm happy to have Reading on side at kind of bigger than 2-1.
Okay, so we've got Reading, Luton draw no bet. Ed, for you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Plymouth down in League 2. They're 2-1 at home to Pompey. They've only lost 1 at home all season. They've only lost 2 in the league all season. They're just flying. They're unbeaten in their last 9. Pompey are going okay themselves, but their way form is mid-table stuff. Yeah, so for Plymouth for me at 2-1.
Okay, interesting. Right, we'll go for a quick break. Come back and tackle the 2 Sunday games.
Paddy Power, the home of one-touch betting. You can now place a bet with a single tap of the button. With One Touch, it's the fastest way to bet in play. 18+, gambleaware.co.uk.
Right, okay, 2 interesting games on Sunday, Milts, for us to get stuck into. I'll throw to you first, Middlesbrough versus Watford.
Yeah, I mean, Borough made kind of quite a good impression the first couple of weeks of the season, but they were playing well without winning games, which is always dangerous. And since then, they have kind of struggled to pick up points. I think they've taken 1 point from 3 home games against Stoke, Palace and Tottenham, which is not really enough when you're a promoted club kind of seeking to make a strong start. So I quite like the look of Watford draw no bets here. I think Borough's success in the Championship was obviously built on that fantastic defence, but and kind of winning games narrowly. But that's such a hard thing to pull off in the higher level, and that you just are going to concede goals as a promoted side in the Premier League. And Watford now are kind of sharing the goals around, not so dependent on Dini and Nigalo. I think they've scored 12 goals in the league this season, and those two have only scored 4 of them. So that's encouraging.
I will say 4 of those were against West Ham, but there we go. Yep.
They count half or something. Yeah. But yeah, so I give Watford a decent chance here. I've been quite impressed by them.
Yeah, I've as well, Mark, in truth, and I think they could be a better side on the road this season. What do you make of Watford?
I like both teams to score in this game. I mean, I do quite like Watford, but in the back of my mind, I've got that performance at Burnley on the Monday night.
They carried my money that night, that's right, yeah.
I think because they were expected to not only carry your money, they were expected to carry the game. It kind of was a bit alien to them. They'd been playing well against the bigger clubs, and I don't think Borough will necessarily sort of open up, and allow Watford to play on the counter-attack. So from the Watford win point of view, I'm not so sure. But Watford, no clean sheet this season. They have scored in all bar one of their matches. And Borough, this surprised me when I was looking through it. 6 out of 7, both teams to score. I think what James was saying about the defence maybe not coping as well with the step up, but they've got decent options in the final third. So, I mean, my initial reaction when I saw this game being on the Super Sunday was, oh, well, I'll do something else. But actually, it might be a bit better than my initial thought. So, both teams to score, wouldn't say that often in Middlesbrough matches. Looks the way to go to me.
Ed, how do Paddy Powell price that one up, and both teams to score as well for Mark?
Yeah, so Middlesbrough currently 5-4, the draw is 9-4, and Watford are 12-5. The both teams to score is 4-5, and the draw no bet on Watford for James as well is 5-4. Yeah, I mean, I'd actually kind of disagree. I quite fancy Borough here. Like, my money was on Watford that night against Burnley too, and I think I'm probably pissed off because of that. Like, so I'm going against them here. Like, they were bullied that night by Burnley, I thought, completely. I think Troy Deeney said as much in the interview afterwards. Like, Middlesbrough have had an okayish start to life in the Premier League. Like, their defeats have come against Tottenham, Everton and Palace, teams who are going through decent enough spells so far, particularly Spurs. And like, even the Spurs game, I watched that. Like, they gave Spurs in the second half, they gave Spurs a right fight for a point, even though they ultimately ended up losing. They have drawn too many games. Yeah, I just think I expect, like, Burnley did beat Watford there, whatever, 2 weeks ago, and I think Middlesbrough are a better team than Watford. I fully expect them to oblige in the top promoted market still. And yeah, I think Borough for me at 5-4 is a good bet. And just for the hot shot jackpot as well, Christian Stuani might be a kind of outsider chance for that too, that many mightn't pick. He's got 3 and 5, or else Eddie and Capu is another one who might be worth mentioning too. He's got 5 and 7, I think, so far, or 4 and 7.
Just quickly, Ed, have you seen any money for Middlesbrough to go down? They've sort of gone down in people's estimations as the season's gone on after a bright start.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I said it on the podcast there a few weeks ago, or at the start of the season rather. I mean, they were being rated similar to Stoke, and like at the start of the season, Stoke were kind of I thought anyway initially a kind of a mid-table team. Now Stoke have obviously fallen off their form has fallen off the planet pretty much, but I mean, yeah, they were like 9-2, I think, at the start of the season. To go down there like 11-4 now, so yeah, they have shortened, but that's natural enough. I suppose they got a decent point away against West Ham there 2 weeks ago as well, in fairness.
Okay, I'll stick with you, Ed. We've got another game on Sunday. Southampton hosting Burnley, who are favourites for the drop. How'd you price that one up?
Yeah, Southampton are 4-11. The draw is 18-5, and Burnley are 9-1. Puel, in fairness, has made a good start to the season. Like, Southampton are obviously being written off with all the squad changes and manager changes and all that, as usual every summer for them. Like, their only losses have been away at Arsenal and United, and they were unlucky against Arsenal, in fairness. Southampton have only won one of their 3 home games so far this season, though. Obviously, it's a small sample set, but they have had draws against Sunderland and Watford. And Burnley's away form is pretty poor as well. They've lost both games 3-0 to Chelsea and Leicester. I actually think Southampton look a bit too short here, and I'd fancy the draw at 7-2. That would be my play here, definitely.
Mark, for you, what do you make of Southampton? I can only describe them as solid. Really,
yeah, I mean they are solid. I think they could be best of the rest this season, and as long as the Europa League doesn't get too much in their way, which it may well do as the season progresses. In terms of this game, I was liking the look of 1-0, 2-0 Southampton. They've kept 6 straight clean sheets. Fonten, Van Dijk, very good at centre half. The goalkeeper is excellent. I think Højbjerg's made a big impression on the midfield. Tadic as well creates a lot. It's just whether they've got the goal scorers and enough of them to sort of get them up towards sort of top 6-ish. That's where they may fall
Now,
just
don't
short.
smack me as a side who are going to dish out a pasting.
No. I mean, I think that's probably been their issue this season, not converting their chances, because I think that they've dominated a lot of those home games, even against Swansea. I mean, it was 1-0, but they battered Swansea. Charlie Austin has been scoring some goals. Shane Long notched for Ireland in the last set of international games, but that is an area that I think maybe in January or in the summer they could look to strengthen again and really maybe even push on to the next level. But I can see him keeping a clean sheet rather than take the sort of short prices on Southampton or the to win to nil. I like the 1-0, 2-0 split stakes.
Okay, just quickly, Ed, what prices we got there? 1-0, 2-0 before we throw to Milks.
1-0 is 5-1 and 2-0 is 11-2, and the Dutch price of that is 21-10.
Milks, solid Southampton for you?
Yeah, I mean, not at the match betting prices. I did instinctively think they look very short, but obviously, you know, the markets seem to love Southampton and Burnley, obviously favourites for relegation. But I think you're quite right. You just don't see Southampton kind of give them a real thumping in this game. I mean, Burnley lost 3-0 at Chelsea and Leicester, but Southampton's 7 games, I think 5 of them been under 2.5 goals. The other 2, the third goal came in injury time. So, you know, their games are pretty short of goal-mouth action. And Burnley look well equipped to keep things tight. So under 2.5 goals looks a really good bet. I mean, Burnley's defending at home has been excellent. They've conceded, I was going to say they've conceded 3 goals in 5 games, but one of those is Lauren Koscielny's winner for Arsenal. So I thought 2.25 maybe. And you know, they are going to be a robust side wherever they play. So, yeah, I mean, very similar thoughts to Mark's 1-0, 2-0. But, yeah, I like the under 2.5 goals.
And just quickly, Favs for the drop, Burnley. No way back for them?
No, I think their home form gives them a chance. I mean, they played well against Arsenal, beaten Liverpool. I wouldn't be writing them off just yet, no.
Mark, for you?
I wouldn't be lumping on them to go down. I expect them to be relegated, but I mean, I think there's enough poor sides that we've seen this season to suggest that it's not a formality that they go down. I mean, look how bad Sunderland are. I mean, West Brom are in the top half at the moment. I mean,
best league in the world.
Yeah, so I mean, outside the sort of the top half teams is pretty average down there. I mean, Swansea have taken a relative risk, I suppose, with Bob Bradley as their new manager. So I think Hull are a really poor side as well. So I wouldn't be lumping on them to be relegated, although I hope they do go down. I've got relegation trebles of Hull, Burnley and Swansea, which is looking quite good at the moment.
Ed, quick show before we go to a break on the relegation battle.
Okay, so Burnley or Favs was mentioned there a second ago. They're 7-10. Sunderland then are 4-5. Hull 19-20. Swansea 13-8. I mean, yeah, they've made an unusual appointment, I think, in Bob Bradley. And then Middlesbrough you have at 11-4 mentioned too. Stoke 11-4. West Ham 9-2, and then West Brom 11-2. Watford 6-1, and it's Bournemouth 10's bar. Then yeah, I'd kind of at this stage I nearly fancy Burnley to stay up. I think they, as mentioned there a second ago, like they are really good at home. I think Sunderland look doomed this year. I just think they've got away with it too many times and they're going down this year. And then I'm looking at like a Hull or a Swansea like as well. I just Hull don't have the squad depth, and I think Swansea have appointed a manager who has no Premier League experience, and to me that's a dangerous game.
Which one's the biggest loser in the book then? Should they go down for Paddy Power?
The biggest loser is probably it's actually Leicester at 40-1. I mean, we just had a load of money on them from even last season when they were winning the league. People were backing them at big prices to go down this season, and even still, I mean, obviously they haven't had the best of starts so far this season. But yeah, I mean they're still 40-1. Like, so you're going to accrue a big liability there pretty quickly.
Interesting. Not for me,
West
but
Ham,
interesting.
West Ham could be another one as well, to be fair.
Watch your language, please. Right, we go. We'll go for a quick break and then we'll tackle the best game, without
Here's
doubt.
Paddy Power's latest football offer. For the first Premier League match on TV every Saturday and Sunday, bet £20 pre-match and get a free £10 in-play bet. T&Cs apply. 18+. Gambleaware.co.uk.
Welcome back to the Racing Post Football Postcast. I'm Dave Clark, joined by colleagues Mark Langdon, James Milton and Paddy Powers. Ed Quigley on the line. Without doubt, the best game of, was it match day 8, I think it is, of the Premier League. Liverpool hosting Manchester United. And Ed, give us a show on that game.
Yeah, so Liverpool have slightly drifted this morning. I think that's back on the news that Lallana and Wijnaldum and Klein are all doubts for the game. Yeah, so they're currently 6-5 from 21 to 20, and the draw is 23 to 10. And United, we see money for them this morning are into 5 to 2. Yeah, obviously, like Liverpool are in flying form this season. The only blip coming against Burnley, and then conversely, like Mourinho's has made a trappy start to life at United, and that's correlated with the form of the likes of Pogba, Mkhitaryan, and even Zlatan in recent games. Shaw and Mkhitaryan are doubts for United. I mean, Shaw will be the bigger loss there. I think personally Liverpool look a bit short for me. I'd have this game closer to 7-5 for them. I think their pace will cause problems, as we saw with the likes of City. I mean, City obviously have De Bruyne and Silva. I mean, Liverpool have pace to burn as well in the likes of, obviously Sturridge, Firmino, Coutinho, etc. And Mane. Yeah, Liverpool seem to always concede. United find it hard to keep clean sheets as well. So both teams to score 4-7 looks a certain. Now, obviously, that's going to be short for a lot of people. But and then over 2.5 is 4-6. At a bigger price, I'd be looking at the draw and both teams to score at 16-5.
Interesting, Milt. Looking forward to this one?
I am, yeah. I'm just like Ed, actually. I can see goals in this one. I mean, United kept one clean sheet in 7 games, very un-Mourinho-like. And that was against Zorya in the Europa League, so I can't read too much into that. And then Liverpool, I think all 5 of their league wins have come while conceding, so that's another interesting market to look at, which is increasingly popular. I think it is going to be a cracking game. I like over 3.5 goals, so I think around 7-4. Just think there's so much attacking quality on both sides. If Mourinho is bold enough to kind of take the handbrake off a little bit. And I think it may not even be his decision, really, because I think whoever plays Liverpool, they kind of get dragged into this kind of high-tempo, open game, whatever their game plan is. So I think it should be a cracker. And, over 3.5 goals, maybe a little bet on 2-2 as well, as Ed mentioned, the score draw.
Mark, so often we see Mourinho sides line up in these big games and almost set up not to lose. Do we think he's going to set up the same again?
I think that would... I'm not sure he's got the players. I think he would like to, but he tried that against Manchester City. They were very defensive. It wasn't necessarily a defensive team he put out, but they were very passive in the way that they played. They retreated off the ball, and they were absolutely ripped apart. And it wasn't until they tried to up the tempo and played really long ball stuff that they actually managed to find a way back into the game, albeit that they still lost. So, I mean, you're looking, who would he use there to really shield it up? He could... Schneiderlin seems to be massively out of favour. He doesn't seem to trust Carrick either. So, I mean, if you're going in with Herrera, Pogba...
He's not holding midfield.
No, and Fellaini, or some combination like that, Mata maybe. I think it's very difficult for him to be defensive, even if that's what he would ideally like to come up with. So, I did like Liverpool initially, but I do think that the injuries could be massive. Lallana and Wijnaldum, I mean, that's 2 of your 3 central midfielders that do so much of that pressing game for Liverpool. So maybe, until the teams are known, I'm going to head to the first scorer market and go for Mane. I think he runs from left infield, very dangerous, difficult to pick up. And if Shaw doesn't make it, I think Blind is going to be in all kinds of problems against that pace. I mean, he's a decent player, Blind, and very versatile. But speed is not his strong point. And if Shaw does play, I think City found a way, actually, of getting those runs. Sterling, a couple of times, did him on that side. And I think it's a problem area for United, that sort of left-back to left centre-back channel, because whoever they play on the left-hand side of midfield, whether it's Lingard, it's very difficult to shore it up, and they haven't got anybody in the holding role to kind of do that either. So I think that there will be gaps there for Liverpool to exploit. I'm just worried about the injuries before I would back Liverpool to win the game. United have got quality going forward, but I think the prices suggest Liverpool are a better team than Manchester United, and I think on all evidence so far this season, their first 11 anyway, I think that's true.
Okay, interesting. Ed, just quickly, £30 million man Mane to open the scoring, and Milt's likes a 2 each.
Yeah, so it's 11-2 on Mane to be the first goal scorer on Monday night, and then the 2-2 is 11-1. I kind of fancy that myself, and the over 3.5, I think James was also keen on, is 7-4.
Okay, interesting. Looking forward to that one. Should be a belter anyway, gents. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. And catch us tomorrow for the Weekend Racing Postcast.
the Football Postcast in association with Paddy Power, the place to bet on football in play with a huge special every weekend.